It's Friday, which means it's the start of some new series in Major League Baseball. But which teams should we be betting on heading into the weekend or betting against? You're going to find that out right here on First Pitch. It's what we do at WagerTalk TV. While you're hanging out with us, make sure you hit that like button and make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, that little bell. And if you're watching us on Twitter or Instagram, make sure you're hitting us with the follow. Let's get into it. I got with me Steve Merril and Bryan Leonard. So you already know we got a hell of a Friday show coming your way. And I always let these guys, for the first games that we talk about, pick the games they want to speak on. So you can't blame me that Steve Merril wants to start the show with the Washington Nationals, his Washington Nationals against my Philadelphia Phillies. Steve, in this one, Nats, they got the extra day of rest, while the Phillies, they had to play extra innings, leaving an entire busload of players stranded on base in that loss in the final game of the series, the 4-game set against the Mets. So this is a Nats team, excuse me, that they got blanked in back-to-back games against the White Sox. So no real buy signs on either club, I guess, if you're just looking at recent results here, Steve. How are we doing, and how are we betting this one, man?
Yeah, first of all, it's 100% your fault that I chose this game, because I'm scanning the card and I'm looking for my loved road favorites on Friday, which we always talk about do quite well on Friday. Ralph Michaels pointed that out a few weeks ago. But I wasn't in love with any of the road favorites. And by the way, they're all actually the 3 final games on the interleague card are the 3 road favorites down there. And I'm sure people will ask about those in the live chat here. We can talk about some of those in a moment. But I didn't really love any of those road favorites. So I'm looking over the card, and Phillies are kind of a team I have circled as maybe a letdown spot here after their big series against the Mets. And then the fact that it was my Washington Nationals against your Philadelphia Phillies, we had to talk this for big game breakdown. And right as we're going live on WagerTalk TV, I'm reaching over my shoulder, pulling oblique muscles to try to grab the hats, because I realize I've got both Phillies and Nats hats. And I get back before we start, and then I realize I've got a Cardinal hat. Damn Cardinals. They snuck their way into the red hat mix. And I look back, and the Nats hat was in the far corner, and I really do think I pulled something, but I got it. We got the Nats. We got the Phillies.
Well done.
Cardinals, you can come play too. They're all playing. No, look, Red Hat's going to win tonight. Red Hat special here on Friday. I do think there's some value with the Nats as a dog. Red Hat parlay. How do you like that? Red Sox are playing the Cardinals, by the way. A lot of red tonight.
Oof.
I would lean Nats. I'd lean my Washington Nationals plus over $2. But you brought up a couple points. You know, they just struggled against the White Sox to score in back-to-back games. So I'm not in love with that big, ugly dog. But do we really want Philly, though, in what looks like a flat spot here also? Tough 6-5 loss against the Mets. You mentioned leaving 10 guys on base. Keep in mind they'd won the first 3 games. That was a huge 4-game series against a division rival. And now they play without rest. I don't want either one of these sides. But what I do want is the under in this game. I like the under 7.5. Okay. 7.5 always catches my attention because 7 is such a key number. Lots of games can land on 7 and 9 because of extra innings. If it's a 3-3 game, it has to get to 7. But you can still win when you're going under 7.5. The sharp books here are leaning towards the under as well. It's juice -20. We're even seeing -125. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Philly does look like they're in a flat spot here. And they have 8 hits or less, by the way, in 4 of their last 5 games offensively. So they have not been putting the ball in play much. The Nationals, as you mentioned, Dan, shut out in back-to-back games against the White Sox. 4 hits and 3 hits. And now they're traveling with the day off. I don't look for either offense to crush it tonight. I like under 7.5 between your Phillies and my Nats. We can both have our Phillies and Nats, and both red teams can win because I don't care as long as they don't score.
Yeah, Tyler in the chat, he's saying a red hat parlay. He goes, yeah, I got the Red Sox red hat in that one, not the St. Louis Cardinals in that one. So it snuck its way into the show here, but maybe didn't sneak its way into the parlay card for some of the guys there in the chat. But Steve's point is one that's well made. You know, I'm not going to come on here and talk about this crazy Phillies regression just after one game, but as you see, as Steve said, those hit numbers are what are a little bit more striking. And for me, it always rears its ugly head when the Phils do end up going into a slump. Again, I'm not betting that, but that 2 for 15 with runners in scoring position, that was what did the Phillies in the playoffs last year. It's what does them in. Often when it rears its ugly head is leaving 10 runners stranded on base. So, again, this one, I'm glad Steve touched upon it. It's an underplay. You got Zach Wheeler on the bump. So if you want to go back to that first 5 Phillies wagon, I won't talk you out of that either, but hop below in the comments and let us know. And Tyler, no, I don't have Phillies laying the alternate run line at 2.5 in my pocket. So that's enough on that one. We also got Bryan Leonard with us, and he wants to talk a game that I'm going to dub different payroll, similar records, and that's the Mets and the Miami Marlins. I mean, Bryan, the start to the season, even with the Mets besting my Phils yesterday, for the Mets has to be described anything other than disappointing. You're lying when you talk about the highest opening day payroll in baseball, and the results just haven't been there. It's Luzardo on the bump for Miami. So if there was ever, hey, let's find a way to bet the fish, maybe it is when he's pitching. But I'm wondering how you're going to be betting this one, the road favorite.
Yeah, for those who are interested in the red baseball caps, I will be talking about one of those in my best bet. And
well
it
done.
won't be the
Good
Cincinnati
team.
Reds, who we never even mentioned. They even call themselves based on that color. But yeah, I would take a look here at the Mets and Miami game. The Mets got off to a terrible start offensively to the season, but they now rank 18th in WRC plus at 99, which is just 1% below league average. The Marlins, unfortunately, enter play 29th in the league, 23% below league average offensively. They're only 2% better than the Chicago White Sox, who ranked dead last in Major League Baseball action. I love this pitcher for the New York Mets. Christian Scott was brought up to the majors recently. He's had 2 solid starts in his pocket, 2.84 ERA, 1.11 whip. Those numbers look even more impressive when you look at all the other rookies who have struggled this year. He's clearly the second best American-born starter in his rookie class, behind Paul Skeens, with my Pirates jersey on right here, who is making his second start in the big leagues today for the Pirates also. So I love this Christian Scott. He hasn't gotten as much press as Skeens, but this is a guy who, to me, is the second best pitcher in the minor leagues he'll be playing this year. Obviously, when you got players coming over from different countries, they consider them rookies in Major League Baseball, so he won't be able to win the Rookie of the Year, but he's going to be very good, and right now I think there's good betting value on him. Jesus Luzardo, as you mentioned, has had an up-and-down career, but he's thought of as a pretty good starter, yet his pitching run value from Baseball Savant is only in the 17th percentile this season with a 5.97 ERA, 1.33 whip. Now, he's obviously much better than that, and we will expect some positive regression for him the rest of the season. But to me, the Mets are clearly the better team here with what we consider to be the more exciting arm on the mound. You're getting a nice price here, close to pick 'em here with the Mets. I'll take the Mets, lay the number against Miami, who's obviously without their leadoff hitter that they traded away a couple of weeks ago to San Diego, and he's doing very well there. So the Marlins are really bad offensively, and now they're without probably the most consistent hitter for the rest of the season. Give me the Mets in this one. I like this pitching matchup.
Yeah, and this is definitely a shop around, have multiple outs special, because you're seeing on the WagerTalk live odds screen odds as high as 125 here for the Mets, laying it as the favorite, and you can get all the way down to minus 113. So we're talking, a solid 10 plus cents of juice. That is a shop around special, because the chat too, they're all chiming in. Mets, we're eyeing Mets. I like playing the Mets. We had one lone guy, Alex Starkley, saying, hey, maybe I can give a little bit of love to the fish. But speaking of which, shout out to the chat. Wisco, Guy, Ace Rothstein's Titans, CT, Alex Starkley. We appreciate you. City by the Bay saying, what an all-star panel. That's right. These guys helped me look good here. He wants to talk some White Sox. We'll do that in just a moment, because first I wanted to bring up, before we even came on, we had some folks wanting us to bring up this Houston and Milwaukee game. That's right. We have people waiting in the chat room just to ask you guys your thoughts on games. While you're hanging out, make sure you hit that like button. But Astros and Milwaukee, I mean, this one, Steve, I'll start with you. pretty much pick 'em pricing in this one. So a true toss-up here with Peralta and Brown on the mound. And this is one that really didn't stand out to me simply because of that pick 'em price. It's I feel like I could make a case for both sides in this one to start the series.
Well, the Astros are an interesting team to talk about right now because they were the second. You just talked about the Marlins. They were the second biggest money burner in baseball for the first couple months behind Miami. And that's, of course, because they've been a championship team for a decade, and their bullpen had been a strong part of that, and their bullpen got off to a really weak start. But Bryan and I had talked about it on many shows, and Bryan had pointed out, they still had some talent there, and they have slowly gotten better as the season goes. You look at the overall 4.2 ERA, it seems very average, but their ERA was in the sixes for the first few weeks of the season. So they are pitching better in the bullpen. Their whip is actually 1.35 now, which is a solid number. And they are starting to win. And now Houston has quietly won 5 straight and 7 of their last 8. Not putting the ball in play too much, though. They still have had 8 hits or less in 5 of their last 7 games. But it does look like they're starting to turn the corner and play better baseball. Now, let's not get too excited because the last 4 wins, of course, came against the Oakland A's, who were overachieving. Oakland, the worst team in baseball last year, actually had a better record than Houston up until that 4-game series started the last few days. And it also took care of Detroit 2 out of 3 before that. So this will be a little bit of a step up in class for the Astros, but I do think this could be a buy opportunity with Houston over the next several weeks. They're still just 11-12 at home. Blanco caught cheating in that 2-1 win the other night. We talked about that on the show. So Houston, once again, back up to their old ways, cheating, and it looks like they're starting to win as well.
Bri, for you in this one, any thoughts on the side? Sure, but some folks in the chat wondering, any thoughts on why this total might be ticking down? Not only have we moved off at 8.5, not saying it's a key number or anything like that, but we moved down to 8, and we're also seeing some spots that are juiced towards that under, saying this might tick even a little bit lower. So with Peralta and Brown, I mean, could that be a sign that maybe, at least in the Brown side of the equation, that we could see the market maybe expecting some positive regression on the bump there for the home side? Any thoughts on this total that's heading on downwards, Bryan?
Yeah, if you look at Brown, he was highly thought of. He was one of the better pitchers in this rotation coming into the season, but he's had a terrible year. But if you look at his root numbers, his base numbers, he hasn't been as bad as what the numbers have come out as. I don't know if I want to back him yet until I see it a couple starts in a row here. But I agree with Steve. I think there's going to be value here on Houston. I watch a lot of Astros games, and Bregman and a few other players just look totally out of it early on. They're starting to come around now. Bregman actually, the last couple of games, has really come out and played pretty well. So Houston's got a lot of talent on this team. We talked about in the past, the back of the bullpen. We got some ugly numbers back there, but those are quality pitchers. The last 3 guys, I probably wouldn't take anybody else in baseball past their 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guys. They're that good, so you know that's going to come around. So the better part of the Houston Astros schedule is coming up in the future. They've survived so far. In fact, as you mentioned, beating Oakland, I believe they're now up into 3rd place in the division. But I don't want to go against Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta has been one of the most consistent pitchers in Major League Baseball. And one thing that doesn't show in a lot of stats is the Milwaukee defense. The Milwaukee defense is very good, extremely good. And I like the way they play their players. They've got a lot of guys who can play multiple positions. So they can move them around as the game goes on and improve the defense. That's something a lot of teams in Major League Baseball just can't do. The lines are around a pick-em situation, and that's what I think it should be. I couldn't find anything in this game to play, but I am going to look at this game and see how Brown fares against this Milwaukee lineup, which has been pretty good so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe we've seen the total tick down here because a big shipment of the sticky stuff was seen heading into Houston. I don't know. That could be the situation. I don't have boots in the ground there, but who knows the reasoning behind it. But a good breakdown there from these guys. Also want to let you know before we move on here to the next game, we'll talk our man Adam Trigger's White Sox, because talk about having to lay a number, Yankees and White Sox. Before we touch upon that one, $5 is all you got to use to try out some of our guys over at WagerTalk.com. So as we head on into the weekend, we're calling it the Customer Appreciation Special. It's the appreciation for the guys and gals in the chat each and every day, but you can grab a best bet from any capper your choice. Grab as many as you want just $5 a play. So, roll around the couch, try and find some change out of there, and maybe throw it towards, if you never have before, trying out some of our cappers over at WagerTalk.com. Guys, White Sox and Yankees. City by the Bay gave us the shout out saying it's an all-star panel today. So he's asking, you feeling spicy and want to get real spicy with the Chicago White Sox? Guys, I like Heat just as much as the other guys, just as much as the best. But hey, the White Sox did have a good series against the Nats, but I feel like it's just a different beast when you're heading on into New York. Bryan, I'll throw it for your thoughts here on this one. I mean, I know you're all about your dogs, but and this is one that's a real ugly dog.
It is, and hats off to the White Sox. I believe they have a winning record like the last 21 games. I think they're like 11-10, so they've started to turn it around a little bit. Anytime a team is running as bad as the White Sox did early in the season, you know you're going to find value coming up. The same thing happened with the Oakland A's, as you mentioned last year, and they were a nice money maker for us as the year went on. But I don't like the pitching matchup here. Clevenger used to pitch in Cleveland, and he was a pretty good pitcher there, but then he got hurt, and he's bounced around the last few years. Now he's in Chicago. He has pitched a little bit better this year than he has in the last couple seasons, so he's looked pretty good, but you're going up against a stacked, at least the top half of the lineup for the Yankees is stacked, and that's always a concern there. I can't get to the Yankees side, though, because the line's just too high. It's Major League Baseball. We've seen it how many times. Look at the Dodgers yesterday. They went up against a bullpen game, and they get shut out until going into the last inning. So anything can happen in baseball, and that's why we love to bet underdogs in it. But I can't get there with the White Sox. If I wanted to play it, maybe I would play the White Sox team total under, something to that effect, because they're still struggling offensively. As I mentioned before, they're still last in WRC plus on the season. Maybe that's the way you can get to fading the White Sox without having to lay that 250, 270 line in this one.
Yeah, and again, like Bryan said, give the round of applause to what the White Sox have done. Sure, they've been making some cash here for folks, but let's not act like this Yankees team that they're playing. It's 10-2, this little run that they've been on, and in that, it's not just been the bats, like what you think of with New York. They've allowed 3 runs or fewer in 8 of those 10 or 12 games that I just referenced there. So they've been doing it at the plate as well. So, congratulations to the White Sox, but this is just a different beast. So Steve, kind of like he said, yeah, you look at the nice plus money prices and you want to be able to make a case for it. I know that our man Adam Trigger is probably going to tell us bet the 1.5 on the run line, but with the Yankees and how they just being able to shut down some bats with regularity here, I don't even know if I could find value on that.
Yeah, Bryan said 11-10. They're 11-8 their last 19, and that was after the 3-22 start. So they started 3-22. They've gone 11-8 since. It just shows the ebb and flow, these 20 to 30 game spans. We just talked about another one with the Astros, second biggest money burner in baseball, and they've been very profitable over the last week. White Sox were the worst team in baseball, and they've been the most profitable team against the money line the last couple of weeks. So this is how you handicap baseball. You don't try to catch the falling knife, but you also ride the teams that are in good current form. With that said, though, the White Sox are still averaging just 2.5 runs a game on the road this season. This is not a good offensive team. They've won 6 of their last 8 games. They've had 8 hits or less in 7 straight until their 9-hit 2-0 win against Washington the other day. So they're not hitting the ball. They're getting it done with pitching, and that's exactly what those Oakland A's did, who overachieved for the first couple of months of the season as well. Oakland was getting it done with pitching. Yankees bullpen has been fantastic all season. They just manhandled Minnesota. And keep in mind, Minnesota entered that series winning 17 out of 20, and the Yankees swept them 3-0, outscored them 14-1. A team that was 17-3, they outscored 14-1 and swept back-to-back shutouts. So definitely not looking to fade the Yankees right now, but also not looking to fade the White Sox at over a $2 price. That's why they're the most profitable team in baseball the last couple of weeks. That gets me to the total. Under 7.5, I think, is worth a look, and we have seen some sharp money on the under. Opened as high as 8.5. It's now down to 7.5. I'm not big on playing 1-point moves, but once again, 8's kind of a dead number. 7's the real key number. I still like the under at 7.5 or higher.
That's Steve Merril, WT.buzz/SM. We got a shout out, a big time shout out for you, Steve, in the chat. Lord Farquad checking in. Big fan of Shrek. Saying, big dog, Steve, you assisted with an 8K smash last night, Steve. So he's asking, hey, what's your Cash App? 8K winner. Dude, that could buy him a lot of $5 packages today over at WagerTalk.com. Congrats on the hit, man. We love when our cappers are able to come through. We get you some big scores. It's what we do here. And don't forget about the free content as well that's being put out by Steve on a daily basis, breaking down games. Bryan as well doing some baseball breakdowns. So more reasons than ever to hit that bell. Join the Wager Talk family. Cash alongside us. We love hearing that. So when we let you win, we love hearing it. When we sometimes put you on a loser, hey, we listen to you as well. It's all about riding together, and in the end of the day, taking that long-term approach, being up at the end of the year. These are two of the best guys who do it year in and year out. We talked about that huge price, guys, with the Yankees. So we had City in the Bay wanting to bring up another game with a huge price, and one that I personally think is justified with Atlanta and San Diego. I just find no reasons, at least if you want to split the game in half. I know you still have to lay a number. With what Max Fried is doing at the plate right now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Recent form, whatever you want to say. For me, it's Atlanta or pass, even at the big number. I'm not going to lay it full game because it just doesn't make sense in baseball. But Steve, any thoughts on this Bravos and Padres game? Because like I said, Fried just terrific recent form.
Yeah, he's been a fantastic current form. And on the surface, it doesn't look like a good spot for San Diego. They do get to leave home after getting swept by Colorado. And by the way, the Rockies are in excellent current form, but still getting swept by Colorado is over a 230 favorite in every one of the three games. Tells you that you're probably not in good current form. Now they travel cross country. They did have yesterday off. Maybe they regroup. But one thing we've pointed out on the show, on the Friday shows recently, is that the better team, the favorites, usually do pretty well in game ones and on Fridays. It's an angle that's won long term. Works better with road favorites because we're getting a discounted price. So here again, I'm not in a hurry to lay this huge number with Atlanta. But want to point out that under run. What was it? I think 19-1. It's now like 20-1 under their last 21. They just continue to go under the total. And it's because they're priced as an explosive offensive team that has not been explosive recently. And you look at Atlanta, one run against the Cubs. Bryan's cat agrees. Everyone agrees that it's Atlanta under until this falling knife stops.
See, it's the antithesis of betting a dog. You bet the favorite, you're laying it with the cat is the way that it goes there, Steve. We also got Eric D in the chat. He's saying, what are we afraid of laying the run and a half here with Atlanta? The only problem that we always have with that is losing that potential second at bat and losing a half inning with laying that run and a half with the home side. It's minus 108. So if you want to get frisky with the price, I would prefer with this pitching matchup, if you want to be betting the favorite and lay the half run in the first five would maybe be the way that I would look at that. Bryan, any thoughts on this one before we roll on to some of these other questions that we have here in the chat?
Yeah, I apologize for the cat. Made it through half the show, and I thought we were doing well, and we woke him up somehow. I've been very impressed by the Padres offense this year. I didn't think much of the Padres coming into the season. I bet them under in season wins, but they are hitting pretty well. They've got a WRC plus of 111, which is seventh in baseball, which is actually ahead of the Atlanta Braves at 110. The Braves have been slumping offensively. If you take a look at what they've done from the better part of the lineup, Albies is hitting pretty well, but the rest of the guys, Acuna's having some real struggles so far, and he was supposed to, be somewhere close to the season he had last year, which was just tremendous. But Olson's not as well. O'Reilly's not. I think he's got 3 home runs on the season. He's currently out for a few days. So you've got an Atlanta offense that isn't in peak form right now. And that is something, when you're looking at an underdog, is something you have to take into account. I'm not going to get behind San Diego here, but I could see maybe playing Atlanta under in their team total in this one. you don't see pitchers like Waldron very often. So maybe in that regard, we can find some value there. But I'm not going to stand in front of Fried. He's been doing very well lately, and you get a hot pitcher like that who's done it before. I won't be getting in front of him, but I think the line's pretty much where it would be expected to be. So I can't find anything for you. I'm sorry about that.
No, all good on that one, Bry. And this is the reality of sometimes these Friday series. We talked about it on last week's show. When you're looking at these big favorites on Friday, yes, maybe there's trepidation, but it's been a profitable endeavor, and especially on a day like today, you have the Phillies, the Yankees. I'm looking at the Braves here. Dodgers are approaching $2 favorites. I mean, you have plenty of teams that you're just laying huge prices on. So more than ever, this is a day where you maybe don't cross them off your card as you usually would, or you just say, hey, that price is not interesting to me. How about I try and see how game one goes, bet this game the rest of the series. A game with an interesting pitching matchup that is a actually manageable, bettable price here is Toronto and Tampa Bay. And make sure you stick around, folks, because we do have best bets coming up. We're going to talk Twins, Guardians, and Angels and the Rangers. We're going to break those games down. We got a total bet for you and a potential barking dog. So that's what's coming up in the best bet segment. But Steve, I want to get your thoughts here on this Toronto and Tampa Bay matchup. It's Bassett who's going to be on the mound for Prez's Toronto Blue Jays. Prez free zone, but I'm obligated to at least mention him when he's away, Steve. I'm sorry for that. But any thoughts as far as this game goes?
I've always wondered what's in your contract. And I had a feeling
I know
must mention Prez clause.
That fine print will get you, man.
And it was in Canadian, so it was very difficult to read for
exactly.
you at least.
Many A's, it was covered in maple syrup. No good.
Right, and right as I said that, I was like, well, people are going to say, well, they speak French in Quebec. But he's from Toronto. He's Ontarian Canadian. Different language, though. Different type of English. Yeah, look, the Rays were another team like Houston that got off to that slow start. And like the Astros, they were having some bullpen problems the first month or so of the season. Yep. And that's a team over the last decade that's dominated because of the bullpen as well. Started to pitch better. The bullpen numbers are now getting very reasonable. In fact, both Houston and Tampa have a 1.34, 1.35 whip, which is a pretty good whip, identical. So it's amazing how they both have rounded into form after slow starts. And the Rays have won 4 of their last 6, but they're still not hitting the ball well. 8 hits or less now in 8 of their last 9 games. So I'd be careful with that offense. They're getting it done with pitching, as is often the case. So I would lean under 8.5 for that reason. As far as Toronto goes, they were off yesterday, return home after the 2-game series against Baltimore. They won 3-2, and then a tough loss 3-2. They really needed the day off on Thursday because they have an error. They put the guy on in the 9th up 2-1, and then they give up another home run to the youngster, Westberg. So it was a tough loss 3-2. We'll see if they regroup with the day off back at home tonight.
Yeah, and I'm wondering for you, Bry, would you ever think of maybe potentially splitting this game in half? I mean, I know the Blue Jays are coming off a pretty disappointing loss in that final game against the O's, but they did at least have something to be optimistic about, the fact that they were able to split there. It's not like Bassett has been crazy terrific. I mean, if you just go by the wins alone, 3-5, not that great of an ERA, definitely below average. But it's not like I love this Tyler Alexander guy either. So if I come into this game thinking I maybe want to bet on the Blue Jays, would it be something that you would maybe split in half, or is this one that you just really didn't have much in?
Actually, I don't have much, but Tampa Bay is probably going to make it a bullpen game. I think that is a benefit for Tampa Bay. They always have a deep bullpen. So I would prefer that from a pitching standpoint against Toronto and Bassett. And you mentioned Perez earlier and the slight differences in English. I've never heard anybody say the word year like Perez does. He calls it a year. I don't know what it is.
Drama. He's starting drama now.
Yes.
I listened to Carmine. Yeah. Carmine's also from Toronto. He never pronounces it wrong. I don't know where Perez gets "your" from, and I've seen some of the analysis in the chat as he's talking. Everybody, first time you listen to him, you go, "What's a your?" What's a your?
Yeah.
We've talked about two of the owners because I mentioned Pittsburgh with the jersey I got on with Marco, and no talk about Detroit today for Johnny Detroit. I guess I don't know, but I think Tampa's got a little bit of value here. I prefer the pitching side of Tampa in this game, and they seem to be hitting a little bit better now. And I'm still waiting for some of their minor leaguers to come up, which are better than what they've got going on now, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But Tampa Bay is a team, as the season goes on, I think they'll be able to make us some money.
Yeah, I think the reason why Prez has his own dialect is maybe one too many Grateful Dead shows for him. Maybe just one too many. I'm sure
it's going to get worse after tonight. It's going to get worse after this weekend. Tune in Monday.
Yeah, tonight they're in Vegas. Teddy's going to the show in Vegas tonight, and I didn't even know he was a Dead fan.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I worry for their safety behind that Sphere. It's like Talladega Bank. The seats are like banked like the Daytona Speedway in there, so this could be dangerous.
Yeah, I'm taking the over on people spilling down the stairs at the Grateful Dead show. But yeah, that'll be a hell of a show. If that's a reason alone to make sure you're subscribed here. So you tune in Monday to Wager Talk Today when those two guys are probably still nursing a hangover. But before we get to best bets here, guys, Bryan kind of touched upon it there. So hey, let's get that final mention and complete the trifecta and talk Detroit and Arizona, because interesting line move in this one. I see Scuball on the mound for Detroit. It's Ryan Nelson for Arizona. Yet we saw a big price drop on the road favorite and Scuball. I thought that was a little bit surprising. Does that mean, Bry, there's some buy signs on this D-back side? I was just surprised by that market move. Not saying I don't agree with it, but it just kind of piqued my eyes when I looked at the Wager Talk live odds screen.
Yeah, if you've watched the last few starts for Scuball, he has taken money, and he's pitched well. But the Tigers just are not hitting at all right now. And that is your concern when you've got a road favorite going into Arizona. And say what you want about the Diamondbacks. Hey, they were in the World Series last year. And this is still Nelson's a better pitcher than what he has shown. They don't have great starting pitching in Arizona, but they got a couple of really good starters. Gallant's terrific. But, I think it's more of a fade on the bats in Detroit. We've had a few guys that have had pretty good seasons for the Tigers. But as of right now, Green's hitting pretty well, and pretty much that's about it. So I think it's a fade of the Detroit offense in that one.
Yeah, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. If we want to fade the Detroit offense, Steve, is this a potential Detroit team total under for you, or do you not get enough on the mound on Ryan Nelson to make you maybe feel great about that as they start off this 3-game set interleague against the D-backs?
Yeah, I think this money move, Dan, from 150 on the opener down to 130-ish is just because it was too pricey. You know, the Tigers, both teams are below 500, and I think they're just not going to get action on Detroit, especially from the betting public on a Friday night. And even I, like I said, I look for road favorites on Friday on my short list, and even then I was like, wow, Detroit's a road favorite at Arizona. And then as you dig deeper, you realize, because as is often the case, it's the pitching matchup. And yeah, I would not play a team total under for Detroit just because I think Nelson is very suspect right now. And I do like Detroit in this game. Much better starter on the mound. I think they maybe are the better overall team still. But it's not that Nelson gave up 10 hits in 4.5 innings against the Orioles. It's that right before that he gave up 8 hits in just 5 innings against the ice-cold Padres. So he's given up now 18 hits his last 2 games in just over 9.5 innings of work. So I need to see him perform better before I'm going to trust him or the D-backs with him on the mound.
Yeah, makes a heck of a lot of sense. Sometimes the price just doesn't make sense. And maybe because that line moves, it gets into a spot where if you do like Detroit, it's a little bit more affordable for you there. That's Steve Merril, Bryan Leonard with us as well. Make sure you hit that like button while you're joining us live, and make sure you check these guys out. Get their $5 plays that are locked and loaded. We got best bets coming your way right this moment, and I'm going to start with Bryan Leonard as he has a barking dog for you in this Rangers and Angels game. So we talked a lot about favorites here today, Bry. Tell folks what you have locked and loaded for that $5 special, and let us know why you think the Angels might be worth a little sprinkle here tonight.
Yeah, my $5 play is not one of the 2 games I spoke about today. In fact, it's the only game I gave out to clients today. It's a nice play for $5. Normally costs $25. Get it right now on this Customer Appreciation Day. It's the only play I have up in any sport. One baseball play going today for $5. We talked about Red Hats earlier, and we're going to head on over to L.A. and look at the Angels tonight when they play in Texas. We think of the Rangers as a powerful offense, largely because of how they played last year in the playoffs. But when looking at WRC Plus this season, the Rangers ranked 12th at 104. The Angels came in at 15th at 100, which is league average. So the Rangers are only 4% better than the Angels on the season in hitting. Tyler Anderson enters play with a 2.92 ERA, 1.14 WHIP, and keep in mind he's only 2 years removed from a 15-5 record, 2.57 ERA, and 1.00 WHIP. He was terrific 2 years ago. Every year players tweak what is working for them, and clearly 2013 last year was a bad year for the veteran, but he seems to be back to playing how he was 2 years ago, and that means there's a lot of value on the Angels when Anderson's on the mound, as long as he can keep that up for the rest of the year. Last 3 seasons, Andrew Heaney has a 14-14 record with a high 4.48 ERA, 1.26 WHIP. His K percentage has dropped from 35.5 in 2022 to 22.5 this year. He's lost a lot of what he had just a couple years ago. He's no longer fooling the opposition on a consistent basis. He has a poor 91.3 average exit velocity this year, and his pitching run value is only in the 58th percentile. Plenty of value here on the Angels team that I think is better than the public perception. They're right up there with Texas offensively, and from a starting pitcher standpoint, I really think the Angels have a big advantage here. This is a nice spot to get that plus 145 here with the Angels, and I'll take it.
Yeah, and that's a number that has gotten a little less sweet because some sharp money agreeing with Mr. Bryan Leonard. And often he is the sharp money. Check him out over at WagerTalk.com. Make sure you check out that $5 play as well. 2 R's, 1 L. Steve Merril, you got a best bet for the folks, and I know you got some specials locked and loaded over at your page at wt.buzz/SM. Tell the folks about that, and also tell us this Twins and Guardians total. What intrigues you about that enough to make it a best bet here on the show?
Yeah, going to look at a free play in just a moment for Friday Night Baseball, but a quick reminder, once again, it is $5 Customer Appreciation Friday, as you see on the screen there. It's so simple. There's no promo code needed, and you can use it for every capper. There is no limit. Go to Bryan Leonard's page. Go to my page, Steve Merril. Get both of our top best bets for just $5 each. That's an instant 80% discount, and it is my strongest baseball best bet tonight. I've got one client best bet in baseball. I did not talk about it. We didn't talk about it here on the show at all. It's an over-under selection, which was not mentioned. So go save $5. You save 80% instantly off the normal price of $25. And while you're there, you might want to consider getting my 2-for-1 NBA special also, because I have strong best bets on both side and total in Game 6 tonight on Friday on ESPN between the Knicks and Pacers. I'm number 1 this year in the NBA, and I'm number 1 all-time units 1 in the NBA in the history of WagerTalk.com. So, yeah, we have a $5 baseball best bet, but that 2-for-1 NBA special for Friday is pretty powerful as well. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Bonus late free play in the Reds-Dodgers game also on my page, so go check that out right now. Free play on the earlier card here. We're going to look at the under between the Twins and Bryan Leonard's Cleveland Guardians. Twins were on a 17-3 run when they went into play the Yankees the past 3 games, and they got smacked on a 17-3 run, and they got outscored 14-1, and they had 4 hits and 3 hits in those last 2 shutout losses. But the writing was probably on the wall. Minnesota had a 12-game win streak, and then I think they were like just 5-4 after that. So it looked like they were already starting to tread a little bit. In fact, coming in to be exact, they were 5-3 their previous 8 before the 3 losses. So now they're 5-6 their last 11. So that win streak is long gone, that 12-game win streak. This is a team that is slumping right now. We see the ebb and flow. We talk about it with good and bad teams. Talked about it a lot on this show with good and bad teams. I'd be very careful with the Twins going forward. The problem is I'm not in a hurry to back the Guardians. They just got shut out 4-0 2 days ago on Wednesday, only 6 hits against Texas. Yeah, they scored 21 runs, 3 straight 7-run games, but boy, was that misleading, as they had 5 hits, 8 hits, and 7 hits in those 3 7-run games, well below average. Both offenses are cold, so let's not overthink this. Let's look at the under 8.5, and I like the pitching matchups as well. Woods Richardson was fantastic his first 4 starts this year with Minnesota. In fact, he gave up only 4 earned runs in over 20 innings of work, an ERA of 1.74, and then he had 1 bad outing against Toronto last Saturday in which he gave up 5 runs. I look for a bounce-back spot here tonight by Woods Richardson. And McKenzie's in excellent current form. 2 of his first 3 starts were really bad this year for Cleveland. He has now given up 2 runs or less in 5 straight starts since. 2 good pitchers, 2 good bullpens, 2 ice-cold offenses. Under 8.5, Cleveland, Minnesota tonight on Apple TV at 7 Eastern for you on Friday.
Yeah, you're going to need about 1 billion streaming services, so the good plug for Apple TV. If you want to watch NFL games, apparently this year, you need every streaming service and 4 that are going to be invented before the NFL season. Under 8.5, Twins Guardians, best bet for my man Steve Merril. Bryan Leonard with the barking dog of the Angels for his best bet. Hop below in the comments and let us know what yours is. We love chopping it up with you down there. And that's going to do it for a week of shows here, at least for First Pitch. We still have live programming coming your way. NBA tip-off show this evening. WagerTalk last call tomorrow. If you haven't joined us on a weekend, we're still bumping content out all weekend long. So more reasons than ever to hit that little bell. And before you head on out, make sure you hit that like button as well. Check these guys out. Get the $5 plays for Customer Appreciation Day. And we will see you next time. But you don't have to go far. Check out the links in the description below or click the video on your screen right now. Keep getting all that info you need to cash on all the sports you love. What we do here at WagerTalk TV. Best of luck, everyone. We'll see you next time.